So, thank you for having this interview. I guess what we feel the first time we look at your film is the freedom of the lines, and that you really love drawing. But there's an energy in drawing that it's difficult to keep in the animation. How do you do that?
Well, I try and keep the energy in the line by not redrawing the drawings, so that once I do the drawings, if they're slightly at the wrong angle or something, I work into the drawing until it's right, and sometimes just chop the peg off and just reposition anything rather than redrawing the drawing, because once you redraw, it gets one step away from your original thought, and it starts to get cleaner and tidier. And
so that's the opposite of a lot of things that are done in animation, actually.
Yeah.
That's the cleaning of,
Yes, I do. Yes, I aim to keep it messy.
So, what your background? It's because your background is more the drawing, than the animation. That's why you still have this energy, and you have this way of doing.
Maybe. I think because I never went to animation school, I went and did graphic design. And I suppose I thought I was going to do illustration. I didn't really know that I wanted to be an animator, until I was at college and we got introduced to animation there. So I've always been creating single images, nice sort of images, but enjoying drawing just for the sake of drawing. I just love drawing and just making marks.
So, there was an interview. There was something done in England, I guess, for a festival, and where you shown 11 clips of your favorite, of influences.
Oh, yes,
people,
yeah.
And there is a lot of women in it, and then
Yeah.
some men also, more cartoon, actually, men,
Yeah.
and more about the story about women, Candy Quad, and, all
yes, yeah.
And it's on the internet.
Yeah.
You have and I wanted to know the influences you have, when you said, about the drawing, and you begin to know animation. What was the first film, and you said, oh, that's what I want to do?
It wasn't really a first film that I saw that made me think I want to do it. It was really being introduced to animation as the idea that you have to do 12 drawings a second. That's what excited me, because most people at that point left the room, but I thought, 12 drawings a second, how exciting, because I love to draw, but just doing one drawing I found a little bit restrictive and boring. So it was the idea of doing repetitive drawing that actually interested me. But not drawing the same thing and just moving the arm, that's not interesting, but just creating movement with a whole sequence of drawings, that really interested me. So I wasn't one of those animators that always wanted to be an animator from a very young age because I saw something. I like comics, so I started the storytelling in comics, and I did some comics, not comics, but comic strips. So I like the idea of telling stories through images. But really I got introduced to animation when I went to Annecy for the first time, and then I discovered animation because I wasn't really sure what was out there. I knew Disney, of course, and I knew what we had on television, what we could see on television, but mainly that was for children, and so I didn't really know that there was all this fantastic art animation that existed. So, but then once I went to Annecy, that was it, and it really opened my eyes.
You thought that, okay, I can do that also, and there's somebody who, when we show you film, and especially I'm a teacher and in school, and a lot of people know Bill Plimpton, and a lot of people said, oh, it looks like
I'm the girl version of Bill Plimpton.
And he's got the same thing, drawing all the time. He's drawing, he like that, and he likes to draw all the time. But it's not the same, because actually he's doing like a short every year and a feature film every 3 years, and you're taking real time to do your short film. So it's not exactly the same. How do you manage to do that? And it seems that the energy Bill Plimpton has is doing all the time, and it seems that you're really taking time to achieve
Yeah.
a movie?
Well, I think it's to do with time, because we've been working on commercials for the last 12 years. So the day in, day out work has really taken priority, and so I've been directing the commercials more than sitting at home drawing. I mean, now we've started another film, and so I'm actually drawing again and doing animation. It's really fantastic, you know, it's great. So, but there was a period of time where I lost the need to animate because I was so busy doing the commercials, you know, they're just not very good at multitasking. So, and it does take longer. I don't just make films just to tell a story. I love making, you know, beautiful marks and stuff like that. And I think, because I've spoken about this to Bill, and he's comes from a different angle. I think he's more American and more he's into telling the story probably a little bit more, and takes shortcuts to, you know, so it doesn't take too long, you know, and sort of works out what's important to him and what isn't important to him. But, you know, we have a lot in common, and we talk a lot and compare notes.
But he told me a story once, you know, that his first film was not shot well. And when he saw that, he said, "Oh, I worked a year to do that, so I'm going to stop animation and going back to cartoons."
Yeah.
And I said that maybe now he's trying to keep, you know, because he lost times for him making film, and he's trying to gain that time again doing film. So I don't know, maybe.
No. He has a real problem now because
Yes.
he has a baby.
Yeah.
Ha ha.
It's
And he
different,
said
yeah.
this. He said, "Oops." He's realised now how lucky he's been, you know, with his time.
Yeah. So to go back to the animation in the Girl Night Out, the backgrounds and the non-leading characters are in black and white, not moving, and but it's still a very strong narration with them. I mean, it's really important. How do you work that? Do you have a lot of research and saying, you know, we're going to see the lead character going on, but working on the second
Yes, I suppose so.
actors and everything?
Yeah, it is working out what's the most important thing in the scene, and trying to make sure that the eye goes to the most important thing. But it's also laziness, and I don't like doing backgrounds, and I don't think in colour either. So I sort of tend, I suppose most of the things, you know, the main characters are coloured more and brought forward more, and the backgrounds are sort of pushed away a little bit. But I don't like keeping things still, so I wouldn't like to draw the characters in the background just wooden. So they're moving and they're alive, and they're there, but they're not sort of that solid that they're that important and that you're interested in what they're doing.
But especially the faces, because you have sometimes, you know, you cut and we go to the faces that are going to show something really strong, and then you're going back to the main character. So I guess there is a real play like that.
Ah, I didn't know that.
You're playing, I guess when you look at the film, I watch the whole film, you know, again, and you're playing a lot with you know, strong visual thing about strong. I forgot my word. That's terrible. Now I'm looking. Close-up, sorry.
Uh-huh.
You're doing a lot of close-up.
Oh yeah, lots of close-ups.
So it's really important.
Because they're quicker to draw.
Really? That's all? you mean that all the, you know, the play that you are working with the camera, it's because of the drawing? That's what draws you? I mean, to do that? Or you're thinking about the camera. Do you do storyboards really precise?
Yes, very carefully,
Yeah.
very careful storyboards. Mm-hmm.
So that's not only about laziness and because it's easy to
It's
draw.
not to do with laziness. No, I mean, I really do. Everything is very carefully storyboarded, and I do believe that the images that you make in the storyboard really do sum up what you're trying to achieve. So I take the storyboard, and even though that storyboard image might only take a couple of seconds to draw, I'll then blow that up on the photocopier, and then that will become my layout for the thing. So I always try to go back to the very first little image, because you think that's exactly what I want. So instead of redrawing it, like what I was saying before, use that and just make it big and just work into it. So you're not changing it, you're just making it better. You know, you're just or exploring, but within that original frame.
So you take a lot of time doing that,
Yeah.
that storyboard, thinking about
yeah,
it?
Yeah. I don't like storyboarding.
Really?
It's too hard.
But
It's too hard because I know it's so important, I suppose. That's what it is.
do you do the, and maybe we can call this there, because I want to talk about the screenplay.
Yeah.
And are you doing the screenplay? And we have less coming, thank you. Try to have both of you. And so, how do you work together? I mean, do you work less the screenplay, and then you go to Joanna and say, okay, you have a look and tell me what you think about it, and then you do the storyboard? How does it work?
Oh, I think it's a lot more complicated than that, really. We work with the ideas and the themes, first of all, and I write lots and lots, and we talk through the idea. I mean, the problem with making a film is the entire film, the narrative. You know, because we come up with scenes which are great, you know, and they're almost films within themselves, but we want it to progress into a bigger film. So that's when the structure becomes very important, and that's where we work very closely together, because I overwrite and rely on Joanna to sum up a lot of the writing through the action, through the images, so that we lose a lot of the writing, because it's quite easy, it's quick and easy to write, but to animate and draw, of course, the process is so involving and so long that she automatically sums up what I've written in a few images and actions, and that's more or less the way we work. It's not a smooth process. It's a sort of, you know, we argue, we talk, we try things out, but I always have to rely on Joanna's skill as the artiste, if you like, to make what I write become real, you know.
But do you write thinking, oh, it's going to be animation?
Yes.
So,
Yes.
you know, that's not possible in animation, or that's going to be difficult, or do you write sometimes just thinking, okay, we'll see together?
I wouldn't be writing those things if it wasn't for the fact that I see them through the eyes of Joanna as well as myself.
I think as well, Les is much more free thinking than I am. I'm actually quite conservative and analytical. You know, why would you do that? Why would, you know, everything is, I sort of approach it from a more scientific way and want everything to make sense. Whereas Les is much more, well, let's just try it. You know,
I think it's a.
So when he writes things, sometimes I'm not quite sure what it is he wants the images to be, because I can't see it. So then we'll talk and you'll say, well, what I imagined was this, and I go, oh, I see. Oh, yeah, okay. Because I suppose it's just two people who imagine one situation completely differently. You know, we all think completely differently. That's quite refreshing.
She's quite rigid in the way she thinks about things, and wants the narrative to be very clear and very ordered, and I'm sort of the opposite. I see things in sections, and I see the possibilities of you can do anything, especially in animation.
Yeah.
You know, it's so close to the art process and to dreams and all the rest of fantasy that I think of it like that. So I'm not kind of restricted by anything really. I think the thing that we concentrate on more than anything else is the character profiles that are really incredibly. The written descriptions of those are huge. In fact, sometimes the character profiles become the script.
Yeah.
And in this next film, that's what's happening, actually. It started off as a film about a development of somebody's ambition. It's ended up as the story of certain characters related to Beryl. And it's taken over.
It's almost like the different chapters are the different characters.
Yeah, it's very episodic
nice, yeah.
in that sense. And we've introduced a lot of, I guess, what you call back history, going back in the past. We've never seen anything.
You see Beryl when she's little.
Yeah,
Great, wow.
yeah. So, and I dream. I kind of dream a lot. I mean, I don't know what anybody else does. But I dream all the time, every night, you know. And I wake her up sometimes and say, I describe what and you know, and try and figure out what that means. And
Yeah, that's good.
but that feeds into the film and sort of writing. It's very loose and very, because my background is fine art, you know, not graphics and.
Yeah.
But it's strange when you say that, because when we think about it, we think that the words has to be precise and the drawings are maybe more free. And it's in
it's
the
the other way
opposite,
round.
finally, when you talk.
It is the other way around, completely.
Yeah, but there is this. I'm a very strong critic of Joanna's drawing, because I used to teach her drawing, you see, so that's how it started. The relationship started like that. And my whole thing about drawing it was young students, so it was like 17, 18-year-olds, was to keep the drawing very fluid, very loose, and not to get rid of any of the lines that when you're exploring the line, leave them there so you can see your own development. And that became the trademark of Joanna's drawing, that she is that looseness. You were talking about it earlier, actually, that dynamics of the drawing itself. And that's what makes the animation very fluid and the line very dynamic. And that's what most people like about Joanna's drawings. And I
It's
try
also-
and keep that. I incessantly look at a drawing and destroy it in the sense of she's going, you know, do it again, keep it more fluid. So I'm a kind of an examiner and an assessor constantly of not only the idea but also of the drawing, right? I mean, that's the way.
But I think it is kept loose enough, even though I'm quite a tight person. When you keep the lines, it gives you hints as to what else the form could be. You know, so you draw something, and you think, oh, that looks like, you know, so then you can take the drawing off on a different direction, and maybe create something completely different. And so then I'll go back to my and say, why don't we do this? And so we really simply, because the drawing has hinted at going off in another direction. So we like to keep it as loose enough to be able to make those sort of decisions.
And you think that in Britannia and Elle, there is something going on? I mean, if we take Girls' Night Out and, you know, the first... Oh. Okay.
She's just going to do a little bit of painting over here.
I love that tripod. This is exactly what I do. I do exactly the same thing.
Really?
With that and with the camera. I'm always improvising where I haven't got... I've actually got a brilliant, you know, £2,000 tripod. I never use it.
Really?
I just use
Leather.
bits and pieces of ladders and, you know...
That's like in Family Ties and with the
Exactly.
chair and that's what the beginning, you know, they said that the last man, Murnau did it.
Yeah.
And the first dolly shot and everything were done
That's
without,
right.
and you know, just the chairs and everything.
But that's what that film was about. The last film
Yeah.
was about that. It was about Beryl exploring ideas of not only film theory but of the practice of it. And in this next film, it's about Beryl's association with art itself, and that is, you know, it's about that. So it's interesting because we're both sort of, we come from art backgrounds, and it's very close to what our lives are actually. You know.
So it's important to do that and to take from...
Yeah, I mean, I always think
your
when
life and-
I used to teach, because I taught for 30 years, it was always about improvisation, everything, you know, improvising in live action, improvising in animation, because I think that the accident is very important, and when you do things, you make mistakes and accidents, and you think it's better than what you actually were thinking of, so you use it. You
Yeah,
know.
but how do you improvise in animation? It seems so difficult.
No, it's not
No?
actually. It's not difficult. I mean,
Yeah, it's not so...
it's not difficult for me.
As long as you improvise at the right point, you know, early enough.
I mean, you know, like for example, in the last film, we it started off as one section of a series. That film was about that, but we ended up actually including scenes and ideas from 2 other episodes. Right at the last moment, we improvised. You know, like the beginning, we improvised that. We stole it from another thing I'd written. And the ending, again, if you remember the ending of the last film, there's a Beryl naked dancing with a dog. Well, that was probably done in the last day we ever did anything on that film, because we wanted to continue, you know, the relationship of something within the film where there's a scene where she looks down at the dog before the Christ thing. So we used that right at the end. Well, we had no idea that we were going to do that.
But you mean when you were doing the movie or when you were writing the movie, actually?
When we were doing it.
Really?
Yeah.
I'd finished it, and I'd gone, I finished the bloody drawing. And I said, I think it'd be really nice if we had this bit. And I went,
why?
So I was drawing it crying.
No, it was even more involved than that, because the titles at the end, you know, they're usually quite boring, aren't they? Everything looked identical. And I said, why don't we continue the visuals into that and do something to do with what was in the film? And I just said, why doesn't Beryl dance with the dog? You know, because she loves dogs too. You love dogs. Mm-hmm. And I said, just do the only dance I can do is a waltz. If you know anything about dancing, a waltz is 3 steps. It's the easiest thing in the world. And we just have Beryl, and she said, I have to do all the research for that. I have to animate it. I have to do that. I have to, you know. And I said, well, there's a dance theatre next door, which there was next to the studio, and the woman has got a dog. So
Well, the dog was he did the bark over for our film. He did all the barking.
Yeah, well, that was part of that. That was another improvisation. But I said to Joe, go and ask the woman in the studio to teach you how to waltz, and then we'll video it. We did, didn't we? And that was it. That's what we did. She went out into the corridor between the 2 studios, waltzed with the woman, and her dog was barking at them when they were waltzing. We videoed it, and then she animated it. It was all done in about a day and a half, wasn't it? Really like that. We had no idea. So
I was crying as I was doing it.
That is a good example of an improvisation, you know, in animation.
Yeah.
Because none of us had any idea about that, did we?
Do you think you can do that because you have your own studio and you produced, well, you have to get money, of course, from channels and everything, but because you do that and you can say, okay, let's do a week more or something like that? Or?
I think on that we had the luxury that, although it was still a commission, it was a co-production with Welsh Television, they gave us total freedom. They never interfered 1 minute, did they actually? Apart from one thing, and that was because it was in Welsh and English, they interfered with the title and things like that. But apart from the creative side, they never interfered with it. So
no, we were very lucky in that way.
I think that's what Joanna's always had, a luxury of not being interfered with, because of the success of that first film.
Yeah.
People wanted her to make more, and they said, here's the money, do it. And I mean, that's unheard of.
Although
normally.
it is the opposite in commercials.
Yeah.
So I've had my fair share of being told what to do.
Absolutely right.
What I can't do.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about that. We'll improvise also, because I had, you know, it's always the same, you have questions. But suddenly commission film, when you look at the last one of the commission film on Vimeo, I mean, I just look at it.
Yeah.
It's a complete change. You work with computer, no?
Which one?
Well, the last ones for the, you know, the roll paper, and there was one from Mexico, and 2 from, and it seemed that it's
completely different.
Completely different.
Yeah.
Did a change come from you?
No.
Or from the people ask you? And
no.
It's sort of, I mean, we've been doing it for 12 years, so it started off, really, they saw my film, they like the lack of backgrounds, they like the looseness of the line. In fact, it was Britannia that they liked. And so that's really how I got the job, and I had to do character designs and everything. But I got the job based on the simplicity of the drawing, but also the looseness. Well, 12 years later, you know, if you look at it, it's completely different, and that's because we've been doing it for 12 years, and it was no longer my character, it became its own character, and it belonged to the advertising agency, really, and it sort of developed its own life
In fact, they got rid of the life of the characters in the drawing. If you look at the first one, you look at the last ones, there's really no relationship apart from the establishment of the characters. The actual line and drawing and the dynamics.
And it's strange because for the roll of paper, I mean, toilet paper, that was incredible because it's charming.
Yeah.
And it's the smoothness and everything are really great with your first, your style.
Yeah.
And when you look at the last ones, that's what you said. It's not the same thing.
Well, that's the way
we
we
don't have the
felt.
smoothness, actually.
We did it, to be honest, we did it because it kept our studio running, it kept people working. The money we got for advertising is paying for this next film. Those were the reasons, no other reasons.
But I mean, yes, I think the way you think about it is that it's commercial work, and as long as you're not selling your soul and doing something that you don't believe in, then you think of it as it's a way of earning money. It's a way of training graduates. We had quite a lot of graduates coming in and doing work experience and taking a lot on. So for people creating job, it's been fantastic, and it's also been really, really. I've learnt an awful lot. Working.
The discipline of it.
The discipline is
the one
terrific.
thing,
it's really good.
The one thing that you've got in advertising for television is you've got a 9-week schedule from beginning to end, and it's got to be, and they book the airtime. You cannot break that. That is a discipline that you lose when you go back to what we're doing now, where we have this total freedom. Nobody's on our back, and in some ways, the
It's a
difference.
double-edged sword, really.
You have freedom and ideas of doing it, but you haven't got that discipline of knowing that you have to finish it by a certain date, and that's a problem. It is.
And how do you work that? How do you work that problem for the
Well, I
short films?
shout.
Yeah.
I shout and scream.
And I ignore him, so it doesn't really work.
No, the thing about Joe's animation, or probably anybody who animates, is that you have to have the passion for it. You have to have the bug, and you can let go of that. If you don't animate the way you animate for a long time, you lose track of it, and you have to re-establish yourself again, and get into the process and be passionate about it. And once you've got it back, then you can do it. Joanna is right now just getting there. She wants to be in front of the light box all the time now, which is great.
So do you think passion and patience, actually,
Yes.
and be obsessive?
Yeah.
You need it to
Yes.
be in animation?
I think so.
Yeah.
Mm.
Always. I mean,
It's just so much work.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be pretty mad, I think.
And-
A little bit crazy.
what is strange when we look at it, they don't have a lot of. I mean, you one of the directors known in animation field now, but it's not a lot of. I mean, you're not in all the media in the world, in all the.
No,
I mean,
it's a little
sometimes
world,
you
yes.
can be in the Oscars, or I don't know, some thing, but so you're doing it really for.
For love.
For the love of it.
And the freedom of it, maybe.
What's the French expression?
Well, I suppose it's-
Oui, that's all that, yeah.
It's
The next film
how
is about
wonderful
all
to be
this,
able
actually.
to. I mean, it's just imagine being able to, do what you enjoy, spend your life doing your hobby. I mean, it's a fantastic luxury, and I know how lucky I am because I've done teaching and before I got into animation, I did lots of other horrible jobs, and I suppose it all helps you realise that you're incredibly lucky being able to do something, having a skill of some sort, and being able to make money from it. Might not be loads, but and as long as you're happy and incredibly lucky, I think.
In a book called Woman in Animation,
Mhm.
an animation, there was one line, one question. It was, they ask you, do you want to do live action at one point? And you just answered no. It's not a long answer. It was like, it's still today. It's not something, because we're going to talk about the actors and the sound, because it's really important. You say a lot of people love the drawing of Joanna movie, but also I guess we have these characters live. I mean, they're alive with us, and the sound and the voices and the dialogues are really important. So you really don't want to go to live action. Drawing is what you like, and it's perfect. and you don't want to go into feature film also. Or
Well,
Yeah, I think, yeah, I mean, because the longest thing Joanna's ever done was a children's film, Famous Fred. Was it 35?
30.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the process of that involves so many people, so it's a huge change of scale, and the time involved and the pressure is enormous. Unless you've got a script which is so good that you see it like that, and you want to translate it, straight away into that. But actually, the idea of let's make a feature is problematic. It's almost like unexplored grounds for us. And short films are very manageable, and although they're not quick to make, I mean, it's 2 years usually for a 10-minute film, actually, from beginning to end. Imagine that, you're doing a 1 hour, 20-minute film. So you multiply 2 years by, you're talking in actual time of like 8 years, but I mean, you compress it down. But the thought of that, I think, appalls me and appalls you.
Yeah, but the feature film, you can. It's now you don't do it in age. I mean, yes,
Yeah.
if you're in Einstein, maybe you have like 25 years or 30 years to do a feature film. But normally you do the same, length.
Yeah,
and
I
the other
know.
one, that's why you lose maybe freedom actually.
Yeah.
But the process, the sheer amount of people involved. I mean, when you listen to, I don't know what his name, the guy that's going to chop some pizza now, and you realise
Eric
the
Boyle.
scale of those corporate entities with all these people the complexity of it is just something. It's to do with scale and personality. That I don't think you'd want to do that anyway.
I like the idea of speaking to a bigger audience. I mean, that would be the only reason for doing it, I think.
Yeah, because when you do a film, it's always nice to have
Yeah.
much more people. But
Yeah.
does internet do that, or don't you think so?
The internet?
The internet now that because
Yeah, absolutely.
when you
It
come
does, yeah.
Yeah.
to Annecy in '87, Girls' Night Out. I mean, only people who come to
Yeah.
Annecy or festival or in France, there is Arte, for example, who show the movie, but you really have to go there. It's on Vimeo, and I guess a lot of people can see it now.
Yeah, no, lots of people do see it. No, the internet is great, and I suppose the whole thing about the copyright, that's. I personally now think the wonders of the internet is that everybody can see your work, and you're never going to make loads of money out of Girls' Night Out, so you might as well get it to as big an audience as possible who can see it.
And in a good copy, because
Yes.
you can put it on good copy. And
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
better
That's
than
right.
all this.
I know, because other people get hold of it anyway and put it up and it looks rubbish. So, but something I have been following is that one of my films, The Wife of Bath, well, that's on some curriculum somewhere because it's to do with Chaucer. So underneath obviously their teacher says, go and watch it on
Yeah.
Barrel Productions. And so it's had so many hits, but they're all these sort of American teenage boys who are like, what? Just their comments are so funny, talking about her dangly breasts. And
Yeah,
things,
I
Yeah,
suppose.
It's just- it's so funny,
Classic English literature, which actually it was part of a series that was designed to be used in education, wasn't it? I mean, the TV company commissioned them for that purpose, and they still are. They are in school because it makes what they read real
More
for them,
yeah, more
in the
like-
way that you do with Shakespeare. But like you said, a lot of those hits, a lot of the people watching them are young blokes and sort of commenting on kind of female,
horrified and
statistics.
disgusted.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So-
Great.
But it's
Yeah.
still accessible.
That's why I love the
know.
internet.
One of the things really important in your work, and it's kind of crazy when you think about it, because I mean, you're a teacher, and teacher also not in animation, but you're a teacher, and you know that it's about lip sync. And normally a lot of people say, to a young student, no, don't do that, or you have to do the lip sync, it's difficult, and when you do the lip sync, it's more for studio work or something like that. But you, for the first film, Girls' Night Out, you put dialogues on it. And it seems that sometimes there is some lip sync, sometimes no, but the dialogues are so important. And in each of your film, there is a lot of dialogue, maybe not but a lot of them are really How do you work the dialogue? You doing the dialogue?
You mean, how do you work it in terms of writing it?
Yeah.
Well, I think it's because we think in words, and we think. When I write dialogue, I record it first of all. I write it, and I look at it, and I think that's not dialogue, that's script. Because I have this big thing about students and writing scripts, and they write in this thing what we call scriptease, which is a way of writing scripts, and it's not about naturalism or you know, it's to do with the kind of acting styles in film, basically. And you write this thing, and it looks good on paper. It looks like a proper script, you know, and then you sort of read it out, and it just doesn't. It hasn't got that kind of substance. It hasn't got that authenticity of real spoken. So when I record myself doing it, and I think, that's, you know, shit. Basically, it's not. It's not expressing what I'm trying to say through that character. So I work at it, and there are lots of ums and ahs and pauses, and which you can't write that. You can only act it. And so when eventually, you know, we decided on the script, then we get in performers to do it. The difficulty we got is to replicate what we want it to sound like with those particular performers. Some people can do it, some people can't. You know, there's a sort of relaxed quality about dialogue which is quite difficult to attain. I think the Americans do it much better than the British. The British style of acting is theatrical, you know, and the Americans seem to have this ability to completely relax, and it's got a kind of quality to it which is really difficult to achieve, you know, unless you've got these types of actors.
Well, you did it in your films, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a flow. It's flowing like the drawings.
But also, when we get the actors in, first of all, we encourage them to, you know, this is what we want you to say, and then if they say, oh, I wouldn't say it like this, I say it like this, you know. So sometimes it's improvised, but then we write it back into the script, you know, so that it becomes it feels natural for them how they would say it. And then we write that back in, so that becomes part of the script. So we work with them.
Okay, so you're doing that, and you're doing the storyboard after that.
No, I've done the storyboard before that.
We work always backwards, actually. It's like everybody says, you've got to get the script right, because you're going to animate to that, you know, and we interfere with it in the process and end up like, oh God, that's going to take more animation, and that's going to do that, and you know, and that's problematic for us. But I did something the other day. I looked at the script I wrote for the last film, and then looked at the film, and it's almost identical. Every line is almost like, which is remarkable, because we try and.
Perhaps it's because we made the film before you wrote the script. No.
Maybe, but that is like, it's. I'm sure everybody else goes through the same.
Well, I'm animating, and we haven't even finished the storyboard, so that's really naughty. Not to tell your students.
Yeah, but
well, that's it. And what do you say to your students?
Then they must finish their storyboard before they start animating.
But you don't do it yourself.
Well,
Bad practice.
we do in the end, I think.
No, I think you just have to. I was at a point where I was pulling my hair out, you know, not being able to. We can't work out the end. We haven't got the end sorted yet. We know vaguely, but it's not. And because I'm like straight lines. I didn't want to start the animation till I knew what the ending was, and then I realised that I was just procrastinating.
It was an excuse.
It was an excuse, and I wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
And so I was saying, just start animating.
Just
I
do
can't.
The
I
key
tell all my
word is
students
to,
that
just do it.
So I just started, and now I don't
Just
care
get
what the
on
end
with
is
it.
because I'm having great fun. So.
So you have to do it to.
Yeah, because
Yes, I just
I
need-
improvise on
yeah.
her drawings in a way that, and vice versa. So if I see something that she's drawn, I'll change things, and it will get better for that reason. So if you stick absolutely closely to something, this is what I meant about accident and improvising. I think that's what really we mean by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had this scene where the barrel in Beverly goes to Moscow. 'Cause we-
Oh yeah.
We had
Totally
this whole we had
improvised.
this all the script was finished, and then we went to Moscow to do something, and then Les rewrote this whole section in it where Lenin comes alive, and
Yeah, I mean, this is a good example. There was a short passage where the sister of Beryl, the main character, is obsessed with mummies and embalming and stuffing animals from an early
taxidermy.
child. You know, she's obsessed with that, and so she sees in a magazine. This is when she was like 8 or 9 years old. She sees a photograph of Lenin's tomb with Lenin in it, you know. And so she joins the Young Communist Party in Wales. So she thinks if she's in the party, she can get a free trip to Moscow to see Lenin, right? So she does. And unfortunately, they didn't go to Moscow. They only went to East Berlin. So she quit the party. When we went to Moscow last year, we went to see, I said, you've got to go to see Lenin, you know, because he's in the film, or references in the film. And you should draw him, you know. You're not allowed to take cameras or anything. Have you been there?
No, never.
And you can't stop either. They keep you moving. So it's actually turned into an animated drawing because it was like walking around there. And then we went across the Red Square into the department store, and we were being taken by a Russian producer woman, and she said, "Oh, I want to take you here because there's this place. There's a retro Soviet cafe in this big building, right?" And she took us there, and we sat down, and we started to eat this Soviet food, because they make it like it was. And then the woman said, "Oh, look over there, look over there, look over there. Quick, quick." And so we looked over there, and then over in the distance, just by, was a Lenin lookalike who was doing the Lenin gesture to her. And I said, "Go over and say hello to him, and we'll take a couple of shots, you know, on iPhone." And he posed like in those classic with her. So when I got back to the hotel, I wrote a scene, totally new scene for the film around that. So and it's in the script now. So there's another example of improvisation.
So now I've storyboarded it,
and
now
great.
it's part of the film.
It looks great.
And what about the voices then?
So we haven't done the voices
Oh,
yet.
okay.
The voice is a voiceover of Beryl talking about the dream of her sister. So that's what you're listening to when you see this, which is something we've never done actually before. We've never done that. So that's
So
an
the
example
voice-
of accident.
So the voices, see, I'm not really bothered about the voices yet. So I'm starting to animate, and we've got the script, so I know what they're going to say, but I'm not doing the lips. I'm just animating at the moment. I'm not really worried about the voices. And so there'll come a point where I think, right, I've got to work out these lips. And that's when we'll get...
But you are acting
people
out the
in.
voices.
But I am acting it out.
And it's
And
because
I
you know.
think, I think we are quite specific. When we direct the actors, we say, no, the emphasis here, you know, so we do really sit
Direct. Very
with the
strongly.
directors and
Very
almost make them
strongly.
copy what we're doing. And that's because we can do voices ourselves, you know, so it's not like because some people can't, but I think we can, so they're fine with
We
that.
think we can.
We think we can. No, but you do work with some people who just don't. They don't act really with their voices.
And do you work with all the actors or one actor?
Oh, just
or
one.
We
One.
work with...
Yeah.
I've been in a situation where they were all together once.
oh, no.
That's terrible.
You got them
Really.
drunk.
Oh no, not then.
Oh, no.
No, they were all right. No.
Oh, you mean with the...
No, the Wife of Bath,
Oh, yeah,
because we had
yeah.
to record voices, not just for my film but for other films. So they were all the actors were in the same room together, and then each one had to step up to the microphone. Oh, and it was awful because I just felt sorry for some of the younger ones because there were some stars, you know, there, very famous actors, and then some people just having like one little line. And I just thought, God, that's really cruel, you know, to
Intimidating.
very intimidating situation. So no, we never do that.
Just to go back a little bit to in L, hers, it seems like it's really floating. I mean, you have these two characters doing things, and it was really also, you have a storyboard, you have a screenplay for it, or it was a commissioned film.
Yeah,
It was a
it was
French-
Didier
Didier
Brunner.
Brunner, that's
Didier
it.
Brunner.
And did he ask you for? I mean, it seems that you said that Les in interview. You said that Les is playing one of the. No,
Oh, the women,
He
yeah.
was doing all the
Yeah,
the
yeah.
movements
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything,
All the action,
and it seems
yeah.
a real freedom
Yeah.
in it.
Well, that film was, we were away. It was very roughly storyboarded, so but it was storyboarded. It was carefully storyboarded, but we went to Spain, and I didn't have any line tester, so I couldn't test my animation. So it was really the first time I really started to look at movement before I animated. So all of the movement was very carefully observed before I actually started animating, which is why Les was acting out all of the
Putting on a corset.
putting on a corset
A
and
basque, you know?
Wow.
not a real one, just a pretend one. So,
That didn't go
and
into
then
drag.
and so then in a sketchbook I would sort of go and work out in my mind where the key drawings would be. Like stop, stop, and then I put that on my light box, and those would become my key drawings. So and then when I got back to my line tester and I tested it all worked, and so that was a big sort of learning thing.
So that's why you said that. Again, in an interview, you said that you understand you animated properly in Spain for this
Yeah,
film. You
yeah.
said that, and I was thinking, what is properly? It's just because you didn't have any line test and you was just doing it.
Yes.
So do you think that?
So I was being more analytical, before rather than after, because I think animators tend to do the animation and then analyse the animation that they've produced before, do that afterwards, whereas really you should be analysing the movement before you animate it. So that's what I learnt.
So you agree with Florence? Do you know Florence Millet? You know,
No.
she's a maybe painting,
Yeah.
a famous painting, animation. She's painting on glass,
Yeah.
and she said that now that she have the video, and so she can
yeah.
watch each frame she's doing. She's always keeping, doing it again and again. And she said that she doesn't have anymore this, the fact to do it like you said once and said,
Intuitively.
let's see what it's gonna be. And
Yeah.
and she said, I'm doing it again and again. It's stupid because that's only me who's gonna see that, and the
Yeah,
audience
yeah.
won't see that. Don't you think that animation is
Yeah.
losing? And that's why maybe we still look at, well, we not only that, but we love your film also because of this freedom, and you still keep this freedom in
I think that's
in the
really
drawing.
important. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's why you have this. You can. How do you say équilibre?
Equilibrium.
Balance,
Yeah,
yeah.
thank you.
Well, I think recently I went to teach in a animation school, and all of the students, their animation was so tight. It was just like
Rigid.
really rigid. And I was thinking, I don't know how you would enjoy it. I don't know how you would enjoy animation if you were trying to keep your work clean, because that's not what animation is about. Animation is about giving life and creating movement. And the cleanliness and the tightness is really just the finishing part. It's a way of colouring it or a way of refining it at the end. But at the beginning, it's all about the enjoyment of the movement. So
That's in your world, but there are thousands of animators who would say the opposite in a sense and still achieve.
well, I think
I think
but
for you though,
I
that's
know,
your
but I think
personal.
people do get mixed up. I think they think that they have to produce these sort of tidy lines, and
Well, certainly students.
Yeah, but I mean, we're not gonna. We talk about Bill Clinton. Now, today, it's not the same than at the beginning when you look at your face. There is a real freedom
it's fantastic.
in the way he's doing it. And now when you look at this feature film or maybe his last movie, there is no this freedom he has at the beginning. It seemed that, like you said, he want to maybe touch a wider audience. And maybe the audience outside of the animation, not all, of course, but wants something more realistic. you think? And Pixar and everything is, the animation now is tending more and more to a realistic way of seeing things.
It's ironic,
It's true.
isn't it? Because animation explores fantasy and unreality and dreams, and yet the kind of animation that we're all looking at now, CGI 3D, is much more, it's almost hyper-realist in a sense, apart from the characterization, which is very strange in that sense, isn't it? Don't you think?
And it looked like the opposite. I mean, the next thing is on art. Now, art is only abstract almost. I mean, you have to be abstract, and we are in Le Frénois, and there is a lot of abstract thing.
Yeah.
And it seems that they're going the other way, and in cinema and animation, it's more and more.
But I
Like
am
you
very
said.
aware that all the movements I do have to be really, really well observed because of 3D animation. You know, because of Pixar, I know that really good movement exists. You know, and the audience are used to seeing really well observed movement and really good characterization. So you can't get, just because it's loosely drawn, the characters have to be absolutely solid, really, and the way they act and the way it has to be as good as Pixar, you know. So that does weigh on me. I don't feel I can get away with it, you know. So it doesn't look hyper realistic, but I think the same sort of truth has to be there.
I think that's to do with the characterization
Yeah.
rather than the kind of technique.
Because
But-
there's been some great films, you know.
Yeah,
I mean,
but finally, the line, you know, always, I don't know, in your film, it seems like the line are alive. You know,
Yes.
the line of the drawing are alive. And it seems much more, I mean, if you love animation, I mean, I understand that people love realistic way. I'm not saying that it's bad, but for me, you know, to have lines going, it seems sometimes really static, you know, going that way, and it's make the character alive much
Yeah.
more.
Well, I think what you can
And,
do with drawn animation is somehow I think the brain fills in the gaps. You know, when you produce model animation or 3D animation, it's absolutely solid, so you can't leave much to the imagination. Whereas drawing, it's like a different bit of the brain. You know, so when your audience is watching it, their imagination can fill in the gaps. You know, you don't need to show every single detail because enough information is there for the brain to realise what it represents. But in CGI or modelling, if you miss that out, it looks like a mistake. You know, so it is quite different because we've been working in 3D with the commercials, and I've been sitting working with 3D animators. It's just a completely different way of animating. You know, the approach is so different. I couldn't do it, I don't think.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't want to do it. Yeah.
I would want to do it. I
Oh,
would,
you
no,
would?
no,
Oh,
yeah,
right.
no, I would want to do it, but I just couldn't.
Yeah, you could do some other techniques, or would you like at one point? I mean, CGI we said, but I don't know if Hardman was telling you, okay, let's do puppet animation, or I don't know, working with Barry Pearl or something. You know,
Yeah.
somebody else. Could you do something another technique in animation, or you just too fond of drawing?
No.
Okay.
No,
Well, no,
that is
I mean,
great.
no.
I'm unsure if Joanna wanted to, you know, I mean, she did years ago do some 3D clay sculptures, like, a little bit like Degas, right? In that way, and really enjoyed it. Never did anymore.
No,
And now
I would
and
like
then
to do
she
that,
says, "Oh,
yeah.
I'd love to do this. I'd love to do that."
But not
Mhm.
animate. I'd rather
Yeah.
just be a sculptor,
It
actually.
depends. And we went to see
Just a one-off.
there's a fantastic show on in the Tate in London this week of this month of Roy Lichtenstein, the pop artist that did the comic, big, huge, and it was so it was such a beautiful show, and it's all about, you know, you think it's all very rigid and all very, because it's beautifully kind of constructed, but it's actually examining the nature of what a gesture is, movement, and he talks about that, and sort of in his own way he's doing what Joanna does with that looseness, and he does it in a way that first of all you think they're the most planned, the most rigid, the most structured things, but underneath it all there's a wish to lighten up and loosen up and use gesture as a way of expression, and I think that's what you enjoy.
Do you work on what scale do you work?
12 fields, so
Okay.
sort of like A3, that sort of size.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about producing, because I know that Channel 4 almost, don't put any money, and it was a really huge importance for animation. So how do you produce movie now? You said it earlier. Commercial work.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, well, we've been doing the commercials for 12 years, and so...
More than that, actually, longer.
Oh, yeah, we've been doing Charmins for
20
12.
years. We were doing Charming for 12 years. Before
One
that, we
account.
did other ads,
Yeah.
and that goes right back to 1992, I think.
Mm.
So that's...
So it was quickly after
Yeah.
Girl Night Out, like
Yeah.
5 years, 87,
Yeah,
when
yeah.
it went out, and so
Mm.
it was really quick. A lot of people
Well,
come
not-
on because I know now
Not too quick.
you're working with Acme.
Yeah.
Film work, you still,
We don't work
No,
with them
before
anymore.
No,
we
before
were.
that
Yeah.
we were,
Yeah.
and now you're out of, so a lot of people came and saw Girl Night Out, and did you get commercial or commission
not,
work
no,
or everything?
Not straight away. No, we got interest to make another film from Channel 4, and we made Body Beautiful, and so that came directly after Girls Night Out. But the adverts didn't come in really, did they, until quite a while after, which I think is pretty normal actually. I mean, I think some graduates get snapped up straight away because of a particularly strong style that suits a campaign. But very often, you know, it doesn't happen straight away. So,
So I was surprised because I'm like a lot of person. I really love Britannia. I think it's an amazing
That's the best
movie.
film she's made.
Yeah, well, it's and it's so. I mean, I would like somebody to do that in France also to show, you know, it's the past, and we have to move on. And
we did think, you know, that with all the imperialist powers, you could do a film on each one of them.
That's it.
American,
just
imperialism, Spanish,
stub it.
French, even Belgian, Dutch. They're all got the same background in that sense of exploitation, you know. But that film was probably Joanna's masterpiece, I think, in terms of
But
a pure piece of animation.
and it's a commission film. So that was strange. I thought, you know, it was something you draw like that, and you're just like, okay, I'm gonna do it. Like,
No, it started off because it was approaching the millennium, I think, wasn't it? It was sort of around that time. There were quite a few ideas about identity, and different countries making different films about identity. So it sort of came out of one thing and then turned into something else, and so it sort of. And then the very first idea was more about animating a book. There was a book about British identity by an American woman, and who she teaches in Bristol, I think, in Britain. And so it was very interesting because it was all about the image of Britannia, as either a warrior figure or a mother, or how she's been depicted through the years. But I couldn't do it, you know. So we battled for ages trying to work out how to do it. And I think what I didn't like, because it was really just bringing a story to life, you know, and I don't like it when animation is used, you know, you've got sort of a painting and then it comes to life, really, you know, it's like so, yeah, but really just wanted to make a film, you know, it was animation from beginning to end, and it wasn't an excuse for animation. So it did take a while to work out, but we were working with Colin Thomas, who was a producer at the BBC, but he's very political. You know, he's had
quite left wing.
Very left wing, and he's had a lot of. He works on a lot of political work. So it wasn't really a surprise that it was commissioned by him. And it wasn't really a surprise that it was commissioned because it was to do with identity, you know. It wasn't like they were looking for films about British imperialism. You know.
Did you think of Chaplin and The Dictator, you know, with playing with the earth, or not at all?
Yeah, I remember showing you the scene when he's got the glow of the world, and I you know, it's a fantastic film.
Yeah.
And with that, and also historical caricatures of Gilray and people like that, who were, you know, people think that satire in drawing only happened in the 20th century. But if you go back, it was much stronger and much more kind of, you know, in the past. So that was a source of research for you, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Especially
Really
Kilray.
interesting. And I suppose that's what's interesting about being asked to do something, is it takes it out of your comfort zone. So you sort of, you learn things and you do things that perhaps you wouldn't normally
You're
do.
forced to research in a way
Yeah.
that maybe you wouldn't.
Yeah.
But it's really perfect. I mean, about the narration, about everything. It's the timing. You said that you love, you know, Tex Avery, or you like Mark Baker
Yeah.
because of his timing.
Yes.
And Britannia, it seems like everything fits at the good
Yeah.
time, you know. And so it's kind of a. Did you really? You said that you
Did really work
rewrite
hard.
it a lot.
Yeah,
and
it
you
was.
had
It
to,
was it was so difficult because it's such a big, huge subject to try and squash into 5 minutes. So it did take a lot of work, you know, a lot of editing down and tweaking.
And when you showed it in England, in London, did you have any answer? I mean, I guess the left wing.
No,
Well,
Nobody
did you- no?
really, no.
Really?
I mean, the
It's very
French particularly
popular
like it.
abroad.
I don't know why.
It's very popular in first of all, in small countries. In France, it was very popular as a kid,
They loved it
wasn't
in
it?
France.
It was ironic too, because there's a funny story that she'll tell you right now, which is because of that film, she won this prize called the Leonardo da Vinci Prize, which is a sort of European prize, and the presentation of it was in Buckingham Palace, and it was supposed to be the Queen giving her this, but it was actually, she couldn't make it, so it was Prince Philip, the Queen's husband,
Wow.
gave her the prize, and he said to her, tell me, what is your film about?
He hadn't actually seen it.
He hadn't
had
seen it, right? And she said, oh, it's about British imperialism. And there was this sort of silence, and then the guy who was representing the organisation who put up the prize intervened and said, oh no, it's a film about dogs. Sort of, because there she was in the centre of the British establishment, being given this prize by
I
the
shouldn't have gone
figurehead.
really, should I, thinking
know,
about
but,
it.
you know, it was just incredible irony, you know. But apart from that, it went down. It always goes down very well everywhere, that film. I think because there's no language in it. You know, it's very visual, and it's beautifully animated, and it's full of content.
Oh, I loved
you know.
animating that. A lot of that.
Yes.
A lot of that was done in Spain as well. You know, without a line tester.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
the
why
same
it's
sort of-
really, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a strong thing at the end, the camera eaten by the Indian
Oh,
woman.
yeah,
and
yeah.
Just it's like eating, you know, England imperialism.
Yeah.
You know what England was,
Yeah.
and saying that okay, England is a new. That's why maybe we like it in France because we don't have it. Like I said, this kind of film. We're
Yeah.
like saying okay, can we go further and can we move on? I don't know if
Ah.
England, a lot of people moved, from the
Yeah.
imperialism, but we still think in France
No,
that
I
was
think
the number
yeah,
one
it's, I was
country.
Yeah.
listening to the radio the other day about the French attitude towards Muslim population in France and in Britain. It's very, very, very different, you know, and maybe that's why a film hasn't been made like that, because France still wants this secular French. You know, they'll accept people, but they won't accept the traditions of that in a way that Britain seems to. You know, multiculturalism is a very important aspect of British society. You know, and the end of Britannia says that in
In
a
the
sense.
street, that's it,
That's
yeah.
right, the street scene. So you know, you're correct.
What about? I mean, you love dog. I love cats. So when I saw Famous Fred, of course, I was delighted to do the film. But it seems something really. It must be something really different for you.
Yeah.
work
Oh
on
God, yes, it was really
Famous
hard.
Fred, yeah.
It was really, really hard. But I love cats. I actually love cats more than dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Sorry, dogs.
Yeah, because it seems that you don't draw a lot of animals. I mean, you're much more
Yeah.
interested with animation of characters and human beings, and finally cartoon. Even
I think. Well, I made a deliberate decision to not draw animals because I wanted to draw humans, and I felt I wanted to get as far away as possible from Disney and from personifying animals. I wanted to draw people.
So
Animate
that's why
people.
Famous Fred is so strange. I mean, when you
It
look at
is.
it in your old,
Yeah.
films, even the guinea pig with, saying the story and everything,
Yeah.
it sounds
I know.
really strange.
Well, I
Well, I
wouldn't.
like it,
I
but
wouldn't have done it. It didn't. It wouldn't. It would never have occurred to me to do, except that they asked me to do it, and I went okay.
And of course,
literally.
it's based on a book which is already written, a kid's book. So that was the formula. In a sense.
But it was
That
because
the
it was by
structure.
Posy Simmons,
And she
who
likes
I
Posy
just
Simmons.
adore. So I went.
So one of the strong theme, of course, of your films, when you look at it, and especially from the beginning, and is what we can call feminism. But I'm saying it just after that, it doesn't look like a really, how do you say that? It's always done with humor. It seems like
Not angry.
okay, yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
It's
Okay,
not doctrinaire, ideological
That's it.
feminism, right?
you have to, but still, you fight for it. I mean, it seems like okay, we have all this, fantasy about women by men. Why not do the opposite way? Is it still the same way at the beginning, like when you did Girls' Night Out, than today? Do you think that you still need to have this strong woman and in the world today? You need it in
Yes.
'87, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I think. I mean, I've changed completely. I've changed, but I think. Like generally, yes, I don't think much has changed, in terms of film, and the representation of women is still a problem, and so, but I never felt I was doing anything odd, because I am a woman making a film, so I was just doing it from my perspective, via Les.
Yeah,
So-
it is strange writing, from the perspective of female gaze in a sense. You have to, I mean, I've had a long time to do it, so I've got used to that now.
Being a girly.
And it's still in the next film. There's not actually, even though there is a two male characters in it, which are much stronger than before. But Beryl is still Beryl, and Beryl is still trying to achieve things in a world which is a man's world. That's still very strong, I think. Don't you think?
Well,
Yeah.
I guess that was my question, yeah, because the male characters were really,
Secondary.
yeah, and in the film they're really like this macho guy or the guy who does the striptease, and finally ripped off his masculinity, or I don't know, but it seemed like really ridiculous. Or watching TV, and staying at home,
Yeah.
and you have all this kind of strong woman
Yeah.
going on. But
Well, I
then,
think that was deliberate then. That was deliberate. That was making a point. And I think now we have the strong women characters, but we're also giving more of a voice to the male characters. So they might not be.
And they're not necessarily macho characters. They're characters which exist in the world of Beryl, but they're softer male. I mean, there's not one kind of man, is there? As you know, right?
Yeah.
So there are different kinds of men, and I think in the next film, there really aren't any heavily machismo blokes. They're kind of softer, but they're still strong characters. In this one, more than any other film, actually, they're in it as especially one, Colin.
so it's because you have changed, or because the
I
world
think so.
have changed?
I don't think
No,
the
we
world's
had-
changed. No.
Well, we've got a daughter for a start, so we never had kids really, did we? We did on the last film, but that changes your attitude a lot. I mean, I don't know whether you've got kids. Do you? No. It does.
Yeah, it's changed, like you said. It's a real change for
Yeah.
times and everything, and of course for the story. Still, I don't want to be too much about women, but we're doing. I've got a radio show also, and we're doing 2 parts for women and animation. And what I thought strange is there is a lot of students, women in animation, a lot of women student in animation. But then when you go to professional, finally, when you have to do a list, it's quite difficult. Of course, your name arrived,
Yeah.
Caroline Leaf name, and it's difficult to have like 10
Yeah.
really great directors, women. But then when you have men, you have a lot of them. And when you look at, LCA or all the student school, even in France, we have a lot of women. And suddenly, so I was thinking, why actually? Do you have an answer? There is not so much.
Well, yeah, there is the obvious answer, which is women have children, and it interferes in their creative lives in a way that, practically it does that. We were lucky, I guess, because when we had a child, didn't really interfere, did it? I mean, you made Fred when Paloma was 1.
I
And
did have
looked
to make
at
a big
it-
decision, though.
Yeah,
It was a big
bit-
decision.
You have to be strong
I
enough to say
I wasn't a good mother.
it's not going to affect my children, and I still have access, But that's a major. It's in politics. It's in everything.
So that's that, and also because you have a lot of. I mean, there is no in France, for example, there is one woman. Well, not now; it's changing, but one woman producing movie. And when you say it's interesting because you're a man, writing some really incredible and interesting woman parts, but a lot of people, when you're man, you're writing for a man point of view, and when you're a woman, and finally when you produce, when a woman go to a producer who's a man, it's more difficult for the man, to relate to the story.
Well,
What
that's
do you think?
because of the historical precedent of men being dominant in all aspects of society, and they still are to an extent. It's still.
Well, I think
exception.
if you think of our studio, as a woman, I make an effort to employ women, and so in certain areas you can see there aren't many women. So when we composite, they're nearly all men, but we've got one woman, Fran, who does the compositing, and she's fantastic, and it just makes an enormous difference having her in the room with the other men, because if she's not there, they get very male, and she's not in the room. And then once she's in the room, they all behave themselves, and become normal human beings again. And so I just think it's really important having a nice balance, of men and women. But I think if I wasn't a woman, I probably wouldn't be bothered, and I'd employ more men. So I think you need to have people in those positions to employ women, to sort of encourage that.
And do you think that's you worked playing with? I mean, we talk about Wife of Bath already. You have this old woman and the skin, and it's quite difficult. I was wondering, to draw all this, wrinkles and everything, and all this. And Beryl is this beautiful woman, and
Lunchtime.
yes, I'm sorry. Yeah, what time is it? I'm sorry because you have to go to a.
No.
We were looking behind the ladder.
It's a very noisy ladder.
The belly, yeah.
Gurgled.
And yes, well, we're talking about body, so so that was perfect.
There's another old woman in the next one, actually.
Yeah, a dead woman.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. Definitely.
And do you think it's changing the way of people seeing a woman finally? Because Beryl is so sensual, and she's so incredibly well with her body, and it seems strange in a point of view of today when you see only this thin woman and everything. So do you think
especially
Beryl?
in France, when we come to France, we notice women are thinner, and they're pay much more attention to that image than in Britain. I mean,
Really?
I don't know what you think.
I mean, in Britain, we were all amazed because one of your politicians, I think, went away and had a baby, and then she was back at work the following week,
I mean, really,
it was
she-
looking gorgeous.
looking like. And then how did she do that?
That was all over the press in Britain,
Yeah.
Really?
as an
Yeah.
example. Yeah, because they couldn't believe. It just seemed crazy.
Because now in France, a lot of women think that to be in power, you have to be like
Yeah.
men. Finally,
Yeah.
you don't be a woman with power because you are a woman and you
Yeah.
try to do something else. You need to. So that's what she did actually. It was like, okay, I'm a woman, I have a baby, but
Yeah.
I can go to work,
Yeah.
and perfectly well. Like
Yeah.
2 days after I give birth. So that was a little bit strange. But do you think that a lot of people come to you, and maybe a woman, or from the audience come to you sometime and said, thank you for having other women on
Yeah.
the screen.
Yes.
And
Yes,
women, especially
they do, yeah,
They do.
they do. I went to one screening in Spain,
It's good,
and
isn't it?
it was the opening night, and all of the mayor was there, and then it was the people from the council officers, and they'd all come. They were all men, but they all came with their wives, and the Spanish all love to dress up, so we were all like dressed up, and I don't think they were expecting my film, and so when they saw my film, afterwards, all the women came up to me, and they all looked like Beryl. They're all sort of these round ladies, who came up and they were hugging me and kissing me, saying, "Oh, it's so lovely to see us on there," in Spanish.
yeah,
It was really funny. I went, "Oh, thank you."
and naked. It seems strange, but we
Yeah.
don't
Oh,
see.
yeah, I suppose so.
I mean, there's this old lady in Wife of Bath,
Oh, yeah.
naked, and there was and it's funny because the one behind the ladder is working on a Japanese director called Kawase Naomi,
Uh-huh.
and she spent the beginning of her life filming her grandmother, but naked in the bath, and it's really strange for us to see old people.
Yeah.
That's very strange, because
Mm,
when you
mm.
said that, one image sprung to my mind, which is an image that Joanna took in Japan 30 years ago of an old lady naked, just like you just described.
Wow.
I can see it now, that
Yeah.
photograph.
Yeah. But also, my grandmother had just died when I made that film, so I was looking at her body. She hadn't died there, but she was in a home, and she was not, her head was somewhere else. So I did take the liberty of having little looks, and just, it's just fascinating, really, because her breasts had completely gone. It was just skin, and just the way the body had changed.
I think that.
Okay, so we have to finish in 5 minutes because there is a screening left. But that was interesting. So you drew
Yeah, so I drew
your
her,
grandmother,
yeah.
and it was the one
Yeah, and
That's
so
two
it did
grandmothers,
inform.
isn't
It did inform the design of the
And
woman
the
in
body,
the white
the body
bath.
in the next film, the dead body, is my grandmother, who
Yes,
I
sir.
watched die.
Really?
I watched her die, and there was nobody else, and I was only 9, I think. And I was looking at her, and she died. And she's in this film, isn't she? It sounds very heavy.
You have a lot of death in this.
Yeah, that's it. But
Well, it's about that. It's about preservation and obsession. So
it's about that. It's
Yeah.
about keeping all these people.
Well,
Cinema is like that also.
Beryl's sister is runs a business preserving celebrity pets in Los Angeles. Right, that's what she does, and she also practices it on herself. So she's had every kind of silicone and Botox and to herself. So the film is a lot to do with that. It's a lot to do with. And Beryl thinks of her as a piece of art, which is why you see a lot of her in the film. So we won't reveal any more.
No, but
otherwise
there is humor, or it seems
Oh yeah,
Oh, yeah,
much more,
yeah.
strong and.
I think we try and I think we've learned from making films that it's better to have this contrast between humour and dark humour, and like in the last film, there the scene with Jesus is very strange, coming in the middle of all this frantic and very funny, and suddenly you've got this. I think it creates it jolts the audience out of their predicting what is going to happen. I think we like that. We like doing that. We like dealing with that because that's what experience is like.
And you think it's easier in animation to do that with Jesus, and you think everybody's going to, look at you and saying you're blasphemy? Or
I think
something like
I
that.
think we'd have a problem if we were doing it with Mohammed. We would
Yeah,
a real problem, But
it's a change. Yeah,
we
of-
didn't
of
think
religion
about
and
offending
so on.
anybody when we did that.
No.
So two last questions.
Uh-huh.
When are we going to see the last Burial movie?
The next one.
The next one,
in-
sorry, yeah,
in
the last one. The next one, yeah.
Oh, it's going to be
a while.
It's going to be 18 months, I should think.
Yeah.
Because it's long. It's nearly 25 minutes.
Oh, great. So now we have
Well,
more,
we think
much
it's
A
more.
mini
that.
feature.
Okay.
Very, very mini feature.
Okay, then the last one. At the end of Family Ties, you know, the sister of Beryl said that you need to have ambition.
Yeah.
And Beryl said, but it seemed that I'm dreaming a lot, you know, saying, do you think it's important to have ambition? And sometimes you dream a lot when you're an artist. A lot of people say, oh, you have to dream. But sometimes, like you say, you have to produce and do things at one point and to say, okay, maybe it's crazy to do a 25 minutes short film, but we will do it and we'll see.
Well, yeah.
Ambition.
In
You
fact,
have to have
that's
ambition.
That's what the other theme of the film is about, realising your ambition. Beryl is realising her ambition to become an artist in the same way in the last film she tried to be a filmmaker. You know? That's what the film's about. So,
No.
a continuation of that.
I'm a total optimist, and
Yeah.
a total optimist, and always have lots of dreams and ambitions, and which I will achieve. And so it's conviction. I'm totally convinced it'll all happen, and 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 happen.